The last thing that some people might think is a good definition if you ask them what is philosophy is introverted thinking. In other words, just sort of sitting around, staring at the air, staring at the ground, and maybe think about things to yourself. This is pretty much the same as personal opinions, except it's even less social. It's just contemplating your own universe. Or in this way of thinking, philosophy is really closer to what we would call meditation or prayer, and that's not at all what philosophy is either. So now that we've gone over some inappropriate ways to think of philosophy, let's move on to perhaps a more productive way. For purposes of this class, we're going to have an operational definition. Now, there's two things I want to define here. One is I want to define the operational definition of philosophy, and the other thing I want to define is the definition of operational definition. As I've sort of mentioned here down at the bottom, operational definitions are a way to make sure that two people in a conversation, whether it's an argument, a debate, or a simple exchange of information, are speaking about the same thing. Oftentimes, words, terms, and phrases have more than one meaning, and because of that, we find ourselves just talking past one another. So even something as simple as "that's true," somebody says "that's true," or "we should do that." We have different understandings of what truth is. We may have different understandings of what it means to say that we should do something. For example, in the branch of philosophy called logic and reasoning, there's actually a formula for proposing that we should do something, making an argument that a should argument. There's rules and criteria for evaluation, whereas the other person might just mean it in a casual sense, like we should do, like I like that idea. So operational definitions are basically a way of saying, okay, there's a lot of different ways we could mean this. There's a lot of different things that we could talk about within this. So what we're going to do is we're going to agree on a definition. We're going to just use this one. And that's why it's called operational, because you're not saying that is always the best definition or the best dictionary definition. What you're saying is it is going to operate as our definition so that we both understand, or we all understand, what it is exactly that we're discussing, and perhaps also then giving us clarity about whether or not something falls within that definition. So the operational definition of philosophy in this case, in other words, if you go to Webster's dictionary, you may get a different definition. If you go to Oxford, you may get 4 or 5 different definitions. But for this class, when we refer to philosophy, we're going to say that philosophy is the rational investigation of questions and reasoned argumentation in support of beliefs. Now let's pull apart these two pieces. Rational investigation means that we follow certain protocol. We try to go through our thoughts procedurally and explain step by step each premise and each conclusion and how those premises lead to the conclusion. And we also give reasons for our belief. Okay, we don't just emote. And that leads us to the second part, reasoned argumentation, which is once we've rationally investigated, like once we've gone through and gathered the evidence through scientific study, through research, through looking up different perspectives and different ways of articulating a problem or answers to a problem, then we go into reasoned argumentation, which is putting those facts together into a coherent case, a proposal. So rational investigation would be that part where we are gathering evidence and perspectives and different items that are of use in creating or attacking an argument. An argument is just a proposal. Okay. Reasoned argumentation is where we actually take those things and we say, okay, here's the facts, but here's how I am combining them into a proposal or a particular way of addressing this issue, whatever it is. So the Unit 1 reading is from Bertrand Russell, who is a fairly famous 20th century English logician and philosopher, very much an academic. And this is from, this is a little snippet called The Value of Philosophy. That's not actually the whole book. That's what the particular snippet you're going to read is. It's a few pages long. Don't be intimidated. What I'd like you to do is to keep these reading questions in mind. Write them out on your own paper and try to answer them. These are very simple. They're mostly what questions. But as you read through, you'll see, oh, there's the answer to this. Now, sometimes you may have to put it together. You may not say specifically, like here on number 1, what are practical men? And why does Russell think that they're unable to grasp the value of philosophy? Russell may not say practical men are this, and they're unable to grasp the value of philosophy because of that. Okay, you may have to read a couple of paragraphs and put it into your own words. But actually that's a good thing, because when you put it into your own words, you own it in a way that you won't if you simply regurgitate statements. But try to make pretty sure that you are saying what Bertrand Russell would say, or something that he would basically agree with. So number 1, what are practical men, and why does Russell think that they're unable to grasp the value of philosophy? Number 2, why does Russell say that to a great extent the uncertainty of philosophy is more apparent than real? And what that means is, he's saying that a lot of people say philosophy is uncertain. It never answers any real questions. He's saying that's not entirely true. There's something you have to understand first. Number 3, what does Russell think will happen if we limit our intellect by confining ourselves to definitely ascertainable knowledge? Number 4, what does Russell mean in stating that it makes us citizens of the universe, not only of one walled city at war with all the rest, referring to philosophy? And number 5, ultimately, what are the reasons why Russell believes that philosophy should be studied?